I was on the receiving end of a guy called a masterclass recently. And what he said just before the break, I thought was quite funny. He didn't mean to say this. He meant to say caffeine, but he said a different word than caffeine, didn't realise he'd said it, and wondered why the room looked a bit confused. This is what he said. See if you can tell what the mistake was. He said, OK, everyone, we've worked very hard, so we need a bit of a pick-me-up. So what we'll do now is we'll have a quick 10-minute break for some cocaine, and then we'll come back, and then we'll just carried on, just carried on talking as though I thought you said that on a Friday night, I think, if you just... It's quite good. You'll be able to tell what's reminding me of this story now. I remember speaking in America. Generally, if you do my job, if you speak in America, it's often very rewarding. I mean, obviously, this is the best place in the world. That's second. Because if you say something that they like, they go, oh, my word, that's amazing. I'm going to use it tomorrow. You know, oh, my word. But quite often, if you speak in certain parts of this country, and England and throughout the UK, people come up, if they hear a really good idea, and go, oh, thanks a lot. I wish I'd known that last week. And there you go, that's the culture of the two places. So America is a great place to speak, but one thing about American is sometimes some of them can take things a bit more literal. So when I'm doing a joke which has got a bit of sarcasm and you know it's not quite right, they often can take things literally. So I was doing this talk once and I was saying, if you think you're doing okay now, but say you're doing this well at communication, but you'd like to be doing this well take heart from Coca-Cola. I mean, they're enormous now. But in their first year of trading, they only sold 400 bottles in the first year. And at that time, it had cocaine in it. And then there's a bit of a polite thing. And then this normally goes down quite well. It didn't in America. And I said, well, I'm from Liverpool. I can shift 400 bottles of anything with cocaine in it in one night. Right? So you guys realise that's a joke. They didn't. And there was just total silence in the room. And there's a lady who was down here. I heard her whisper to a friend, did he say he just did drugs? So anyway, anyone who's just coming in now will think, what on earth has happened after the coffee for him this time? Final thing to consider with this. I always think an organisation of people, you can look at it how you like, and you can use corporate language if you like, but one of my favourite analogies is a bring a bottle party, which maybe you've been to. Everybody brings a bottle, they put it in a pot, and then they have a lovely bowl of punch, and that's the evening. And there's 3 types of people go to a bring a bottle party. So imagine we all had a bring a bottle party. Which of these 3 types would you be? Would you be someone who think, we are going to rock, we're going to have a party, I'm bringing loads of bottles, I know everybody else will bring loads of bottles, let's crack on, it'll be great? Or are you the sort of person who would love to, but you're really quite busy, so you'll get there a bit late, probably a bit sweaty, a bit hot. Sorry, I'm so excited about this party. I've not had time to contribute, but I'll gladly drink your punch. Or you get the other type of person who, what they do, I'm sure no one does this in here, they get a bottle of clear spirit, say like vodka or gin, whatever, at home, they pour it into a separate receptacle. They fill it back up with water, and they come up to the event and say, look at all the stuff I'm contributing to the punch. And everyone goes, you're so amazing. And then they just pour the water in, which dilutes what everybody else has done. They're the 3 types of people who go to bring a bottle party. Right? Maybe I need to get out a bit more. So the best type of party is when everyone's like person one, and they just all contribute and bring stuff, and everyone wants a massive punch, and everybody joins in, and we all benefit hugely by the fact we all brought a couple of little things. Okay? If there's anyone there who says, oh, sorry, I just didn't have time to do this, but I'd gladly drink from your goodness, well, that's a different type of team member. And then, of course, we have the people who are pretending, but they just dilute what everybody else is doing. So I think as we hear about all this stuff with communication, one of the things with communication, we're all in it together. All right? You're all talking to each other all the time. So as you hear all this stuff, what role are you going to play? Are you going to bring your drinks? Are you going to be a bit, say, I just didn't have time? Are you going to pretend? That's cool, and you choose. But that's the type of way to look at this, because communication, we're all linked together with things like this. Yeah. There are 9 dots on the screen, 3 by 3 matrix. So 3 dots, 3 dots, 3 dots. Have any of you seen this exercise before? A couple of people nodding, thinking, I can't remember how to do it, and everybody else thinking, what? These 9 dots, please can I ask you to draw these 9 dots, or picture these 9 dots, and I want you to join these 9 dots up. So you've got to join these 9 dots up with 4 straight lines, but the only rule is you can't take your pen off the paper between lines. So you draw a straight line, then change direction, but your nib never leaves the paper. So join these 9 dots up with 4 straight lines. Not 3, not 5, 4. Let me show you how to do it. Okay, so what I've got here is I do diagonal going bottom right to top left. That's got 3 of the dots. I then go top left to top right, but my line extends top right. So it goes like further to the right than the top right hand one. I then go diagonally down, again extending, and then up. So you've got 9 dots there, but the line goes, well, there's a very famous saying which originated from this puzzle. What is it? Think outside the box. Think outside the box. So you do this puzzle by thinking outside the box. And that's what we're doing. We're thinking outside the box. We've got a bit of communication. We need to think outside the box. So to think outside the box, let's have a look how we can think outside the box. I have asked a lot of people over my life, what is the aim of communication? And when they think inside the box, people tend to think the aim of communication is to transfer understanding. That's why you do emails called for your information, so you're now informed. It's why you have update meetings, because at the end of it, you're updated. Yep, it's why you do things called Q2 overview, so you now have an overview. You can tell from the way I'm speaking that I don't think this is the right way to communicate. If you imagine when you speak to other people, the part of their body you have the biggest influence on goes big and green. So if you're doing an update meeting, everyone becomes updated. So they know more stuff now because they're updated, yeah? So their brains are cleverer than ever before because they know more stuff. So they now have a big, bright green head because their brains are bigger. When you send for your information, the other person is informed, so they have a big, bright green head. Yeah, we do an overview. Oh, I have the overview in my head. At the end of today, you think, well, I now understand the things that drive my motivation, and habits is the big one. That's green head. But your job isn't just to make people cleverer. If I have an update meeting with you and I know what you did last week, and I don't do anything with it, then it's just made me cleverer. Our job isn't to make people cleverer. Our job is, the aim of communication, is to transfer the ability and the desire to do something. Communication is supposed to cause people to do something. As an event, I think today's event is not a success if you don't do something differently as a result. Can anybody else hear some music, or is that just in my head? Maybe just think I've got little people talking in my head. They're my friends. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? It's like I'm trying to be all dynamic here and everyone's having a bit of a chillax. So, if you don't like long words like ability and desire, use words like will and skill. Your aim of communication is to transfer the will and skill for people to do stuff. Yep. That's what I would call a green hand communication, because people are doing stuff. So if ever you run a workshop, we'll say it's called Excel Intermediate, and you have course objectives, and it says at the end of the course, you'll understand about Excel, green head. You'll understand what macros are, green head. You'll understand this, you'll understand that. It's all green head stuff. If at the beginning of the course it says, after being on this course, you'll be able to use Excel and save yourself 2 hours a week. That thing you normally do that you hate, it'll take you 2 minutes and you'll like it now. So in other words, you want green hands. You want stuff to cause green hands. Remember what I said before about if you have a meeting, the last agenda item should be green hands. What are our actions? It shouldn't be green head. What did you think? Fair? Yeah? I mean, if you don't cause an action, if you don't cause anything to happen, a good question is, what bad things would happen if we didn't do that? If we didn't have a weekly update? Now, it sounds like I have a thing about weekly updates. If you love them, you crack on. Yeah? If you think, every week, I love hearing what everybody else is doing, it doesn't actually affect me, I don't even like half of you, but I'll still listen anyway, then that's fine. But if instead of having an update meeting, if you call it best thing, next thing meetings, I've seen a lot of people change update to best thing, next thing. So what they do is say, the best thing that's happened in the last week was this. The next thing, the main thing I'm focusing on next week is that. There you go, that's my update. So best thing, next thing, best thing, next thing. Then all of a sudden, I don't have to listen to someone talk for 5 minutes about all the stuff they've done. They just said, this is the best thing, and this is my do, this is my green hands, this is what I'm doing next. If you think that's a bit too happy-clappy, you could go best thing, worst thing, next thing. No? If you think that's still too happy-clappy, the 15 dreadful things. But best thing, next thing, best thing, worst thing, next thing. Whatever. So our job is not just to say stuff, our job is to cause stuff, because we are afters causers. That's our job title. We're afters causing things. Okay, I'm not a GP, I'm someone who makes people better. I'm not an accountant, I'm someone who helps people pay less tax. So this gives me what I think is this is my golden rule of communication. So this is what I think. So if you agree, cool. If not, it was only mine. But my golden rule of communication is this. I think communication is only effective if it achieves the do. In other words, if someone does something differently as a result. You can tell that someone's doing something because they do something. Let's try a very quick exercise. 2s or 3s, not 4s. 2-column table, left-hand column, write down 4 or 5 communications that you're part of a lot. So weekly update meeting, an email about X, a monthly there, whatever it might be. So communications you're part of a lot. Reports that you write, presentations you do, board papers, I don't know, anything. So left-hand column, write down 5 communications you're part of a lot. And the right-hand column, what are typical do's that we could expect? In other words, after each of these 5, what sort of actions ought to be happening as a result? So if on the left-hand side you said update meeting, on the right-hand side, what should people do when they've heard it? And if they don't currently do anything, think, well, what could we get them to do then? So success with this, you're going to have left-hand column, 5 communications you're part of all the time. Right-hand column, what good do's will be. What will be good actions to expect from each one. Okay, in my experience, this usually takes 5 minutes, and for some reason, I'm only giving you 3. It's not enough time! Quick, go! Now, we're going to explore these do's in a bit more detail, but in my experience, I welcome your feedback on this. In my experience, when you are crystal clear on what the do is, well, you tell me, what do you think happens to the length of your communications? Do you think they go longer or shorter? Shorter, yeah, often quite noticeably so. If you have a look at those things you've written in the left-hand column, if the only thing you achieved from those meetings is what you've said in the right-hand column, would those meetings be a success? Because if so, then all of a sudden what happens is this. The way you prepare is you think, number 1, what do we want to do? In other words, right-hand column, what do we want to do as a result? And then number 2, therefore, what should we say so we can achieve that? So put bluntly, communication is supposed to be a means to an end. You don't just communicate for the sake of it, you communicate to cause something. So if step 1 is what do I want to cause, step 2, therefore I better say this then. You know, we talked before about tennis, this is why I'm working with my first serve. We talked about, imagine that your first serve was to include that do. So let's say you've chosen a meeting there, say second row is a meeting. Imagine if your first serve was this. Morning everyone, welcome to this meeting. My understanding of it, the reason we're here is because afterwards we need to be able to do X, Y, Z, whatever's in your right-hand column. So that's what I think. Have I got that right? Do you think there's anything else we're looking to achieve? If you said something like this and everyone goes, no, that's all we need, you'd be amazed how quickly some things can take place. Now, that doesn't mean that we make things so abrupt and horrible we don't even say, hello, how are you? But the nice thing is if you know the only reason you're there is to do X, Y, Z, and you can do it in 20 minutes, well, you can have 5 minutes saying, how are you? And then it doesn't need to last an hour. In my experience, how people tend to communicate is this. They tend to start off with the time period if it's a meeting. They say, we'll put in an hour. Habits, you see. We'll put in an hour. We'll invite as many people as we can, because that'll be quicker. We'll cover as much stuff as possible because we want to make the best use of everybody being there. Yeah? A better way to communicate is this. Step 1, what do we want to do as a result? Step 2, how can we make everything else small? So what's the smallest number of people that need to be there to achieve that do? Don't want to cause any offence, don't exclude anyone. What's the smallest number of people? What's the smallest number of agenda items? What's the smallest amount of time? I heard a fascinating maths thing the other day about how many people you should have at a meeting. There's a big formula, n times n minus 1 divided by 2 and all this stuff. So already you're interested. Let me tell you more about it. If I have a meeting with just one person, we'll call her Alice. If I meet with Alice, there's one agreement needs to happen. Alice and I need to agree. So when you have two people, there's just one agreement. If Alice invites Bob and I invite Charlie, there's now 4 people there. So listen to how many agreements need to happen. Number 1, I need to agree with Alice. Number 2, I need to agree with Bob. Number 3, I need to agree with Charlie. Number 4, Alice needs to agree with Bob. Number 5, Alice needs to agree with Charlie. And number 6, Bob and Charlie need to agree. So when I just had 2 people there, a one-to-one meeting if you like, there was just one agreement. When there are 4 people there are 6 agreements. If you do the maths, and who wouldn't want to do this? If you have 10 people there are actually 45 agreements. So it sometimes makes sense to fill the room with people because people think you make decisions quicker. That's mathematically wrong. The more people you have there, the harder it is to make decisions because you think you're working as a team, but actually you can be deciding by committee. So I'm not saying exclude someone who should be there. What I'm saying is don't just pack a room with people thinking that will help. It doesn't always. Showing my age here, are any of you older as me? Like sometimes you used to go to a video shop with your mates as teenagers to choose a video. Some people thinking, video? What's a video? Yeah, so what I found was if me and my mates went to choose a video, if there's like 5 or 6 of us trying to choose a video together, it always took ages to choose a video, and we never chose a good one. We just chose one that nobody minded, really. Yeah. If you're interested in the maths, if n is the number of people in a meeting, the number of agreements you need is n times n minus 1 divided by 2. I know. N is 10 if you've got 10 people. 10 times n minus 1 is 9. 10 times 9 is 90. Divided by 2 is 45. We'll do a test after lunch. So, a question to ask is this. What devastating harm would it do to you or to your colleagues if you focused more on the do? Yeah? What harm would it do? Why would it make things worse if your first thing was, let's look at the do before we look at the content? What would it make it worse? Because do you know what? If it wouldn't make it worse, you might as well try it. Because the worst that happens is, it's not worse. Golden rule of being a doctor, yeah? First, do no harm. Don't make things worse. So if you started a meeting by saying, hello everyone, welcome to the meeting. The reason we're here is because afterwards we need to be able to do X. If that's going to make your meeting cataclysmically worse, then don't do it. But if it isn't, you might as well just do it. I was asked, was it 5 or 6 questions at break about what we're covering today? I think it was 6. 4 of those 6 were, when are you going to tell us about how to get my kids to go to bed? We're about to do this. Has anyone got any questions, thoughts, concerns, problems, happy, clappy things they want to share about what we've just done before we carry on? Thoughts, concerns, problems, questions, anything?
I wanted to ask, because obviously I work a lot with steering groups, and
Okay, so I'm just going to repeat it so you can all hear. So this lady works with a number of steering groups. They're all important stakeholders. They all need to be there. Sorry to interrupt. Carry on.
So obviously what you've just said, maybe the outcomes you don't get as much time, decisions
Yeah.
Is there any, and you're not the chair, so you can't.
Okay, so the question here is, there are some teams where you just can't reduce the number of people, whether it's a steering group or whatever it might be, and you're not the chair, so you don't have control over it. So what can you do with that? Because all those things I've just said, it sounds like you can't do it. So in my experience of things like that, the best you can do is make sure you're very clear on the do before you start. So if you have if you're not chairing it yourself, have a chat with the chair outside and say a phrase like this. This works dead well, I find. To help me prepare for this meeting, do you mind if I ask a couple of quick questions? Now, what is the chair of a meeting going to say? To help me prepare for your meeting, do you mind if I ask a couple of quick questions? Who asked that in corporate land? Nobody. What can the chairperson say? The chairperson is going to say, yeah, what are your questions? I'll tell you why. Because someone wants to prepare for my meeting. They've never said that before. And these questions are quick. That's not even going to be hard to do. Yeah? And say, sure, what do you want to know? And then you ask the do question. When we have our steering group, what are the main things you want to be able to do as a result of the meeting? Like, what outputs are you looking for? What are we looking to achieve after this meeting? So you ask the chairperson, what outputs do we want? Now, the chairperson will either tell you the outputs or they'll say, well, we're talking about A, B, C, D, E, in which case you say as politely as can, I'm sure we are talking about A, B, C, D, E, but what outputs are we aiming for? So if you can coach the chair through the importance of knowing the outputs, that's the best thing you can do. But if you have loads of people there and you can't affect the loads of people, you have to be clearer on something else. But can you all see, ladies and gents, if you've got loads of people there and it's in for a couple of hours and there's no clear outcomes, what are the odds of a great result there? Is that okay? Does that answer your question, yeah? Yeah. I love that. Do you remember I said before that guy saved 12 hours a week? That's another thing you might be interested to know how to do. What he did was this. Every time he gets invited to a meeting, he picks up the phone to the person who's invited him. This is really clever. Right? So he doesn't reply back, because have you noticed when you get invited to a meeting, someone sits at their desk and thinks, oh, we better invite Andy. Andy will kick off if I don't invite him. And they don't really give me any thought, they just go, invite him. So there's not a lot of love gone into the invitation, but from my point of view, I get invited to a meeting and that knocks an hour out of my day. So they've given it no thought, but it has a big impact on me. And that's okay, I understand, that's what happens in corporate land. We invite people to meetings, they better invite them. So when we invite, it takes like 2 seconds to think, but it takes an hour of the other person's time. So what this guy started doing is every time, without fail, he gets invited to a meeting, he always picks the phone up and says, thanks for the invitation to your meeting. It's really funny, he said, everyone goes, wow, I wasn't expecting that. But they are expecting it now, so they're a bit more careful when they invite him. Yeah? Some of you will think I won't be doing that, and that shows the power of habits. Yeah, shows the power of habits. What harm can it do to say thanks for the invite to your meeting? Can't do any harm. Yeah. And then what he does is he says, to help me prepare for this wonderful meeting you've just invited me to, do you mind if I ask you 2 quick questions? And the other person's so reeling by the fact somebody actually cares enough to ring. Go, yeah, what do you want to know? Number 1, the do. What outcomes are you looking to achieve after the meeting? You know, what do you want in your hand as a result of this meeting? Why are we having this meeting? What's the end point of this meeting? You know, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else. Right? So what do you want to achieve? What's the outcome? So he asked the chairperson, the person who invited him, what's the outcome? And the second question he asks is, and how do you think I can best contribute to that outcome happening? Now again, if you don't like this, then don't do it. This is what this guy does, 12 hours. So you might not do it with every meeting invitation like he does, you might just do it with 1 or 2, but it's a good thing. If you get invited by someone you don't really know about, a topic you don't really care about, you can't really contribute to, this might be worth trying. Thanks so much for your diary invitation. Help me prepare. Can I ask 2 quick questions? Of course you can. What outcomes do you want after the meeting? Right, secondly, and how can I contribute to these outcomes? Now, if you get 2 really good answers, the outcomes are great and you can contribute, you go, well, I'm glad I asked. My preparation starts now. If you get 2 rubbish answers, I'm not really sure what the outcome is, and to be honest, I just invited you because I do. They probably won't say that, but that's really what they mean. Then you go, well, I'm glad I asked. And then he uses this phrase, said, because it sounds like I can't really contribute much. So with your permission, I'll decline that meeting. I don't want to get in the way, I can't really help, it sounds like. But I'd love to see the actions arising to see what happened as a result. Would that be okay if I got the actions arising? Let me go through that phrase again and then. I'm glad I asked. It sounds like I can't really contribute to it. So with your permission, I'll decline. So I'm glad I asked. Sounds like I can't contribute. With your permission, I'll decline. But I'd love to know what happens. So please send me actions arising. Now I love that there is no wasted words there. Listen to each one of those little phrases. Number 1, I'm glad I asked. Because you don't want the meeting organizer to embarrass they invited you. You're not trying to annoy them, you're not trying to embarrass them, you're not trying to... So I'm glad you should be glad you asked, actually. It sounds like I can't really contribute. You're repeating about that they said, I don't really know where you're going. With your permission, very polite, I'll decline. But then you go straight into actions arising, so declining is not the thing that's talked about. But I'd love to know what you talk about, so can I have the actions arising? Actions arising. Will the actions arising be okay? The actions arising. So the conversation becomes about the actions arising, not the fact you're not going. Hey! Now, as you hear all this, ladies and gents, some of you will be thinking, I love that, I'm going to use it word for word. Some of you will be thinking, I hate that, I'm not going to use any of it. But some of you will be thinking, I like the idea, but those words don't work for me. So what I would suggest you do very strongly is have a think about what words might work for you that are going to be respectful, pleasant, not going to do any harm, not going to embarrass them, not going to embarrass you. But think about it, surely there must be some words in the English language which you can use which will work for you. So from beginning to end, he does this every single meeting, I wouldn't, but he does. Thanks for the invitation, whoa, on the phone. To help me prepare, let me ask 2 quick questions. Sure, what do you want to know? Number 1, what outcomes do you want afterwards? Number 2, and how can I contribute to those outcomes? If they're both positive, I'm glad I asked, I'll get on with me prep. See you next week. If they're both not very good answers, I'm glad I asked, sounds like I can't contribute. With your permission, I'll decline. But I'd love to know what happens. Actions arising okay? Cool, enjoy your meeting. Cheers. It's funny actually, because I give you that because I think it's useful just to know what other people do. Don't you think? You know, it doesn't mean you should do it, but it's just interesting to know what other people do, I think. And I was really interested, if not in his scripts, I was interested in the afters of that, which he's saving 4 months a year. I thought that was okay.